a lot of water.
All right. Okay, we are going to do an iPhone connector, and I've already failed here at my attempt to have a short video on how to do an iPhone connector like a pro. I don't think I have any connector videos, which maybe I do, but they're certainly buried now. So let's go ahead and do this one. Let's see if there's anything on the note that is worth knowing about. We can see obvious connector damage. Long time no see. Damaged LCD connector, repair on board. Okay. So the thing with connector jobs, if you kind of need to know your connector biology. If this was an iPhone 5S and it had connector damage, it's pretty straightforward. That's a crappy connector. If you see connector damage, that's probably going to solve the problem. If this was an iPad mini digitizer and you had no touch digitizer connector, that gets damaged all the time. The iPhone 6 and 6S connectors, iPhone 7, 7 Plus, those connectors are tough. You know, they look at these guys. They have anchor joints. They have well covered pins on the digitizer connector, a little less so on the LCD connector. So, you know, a lot of times you have to kind of have on your radar screen that the way this connector may have gotten damaged is girlfriend damage. So girlfriend damage is the scenario where your girlfriend drops and cracks her screen and you say, "Give it to me, baby, because I'm a professional." And so you go to change your screen and you do something stupid, like blow a backlight filter, cause long screw damage, something like that. And at that point, you then freak out because you certainly can't give your girlfriend back a phone that doesn't turn on anymore, so you gotta fix it. So if you start trying to troubleshoot, you want to make the problem be something that it's not, and that doesn't work. So you want the problem to be just the screen, or it's just not connected, or I need to clean the connectors. So you clean the connectors, and then you snap it in the screen and you screw it down really hard, and it still doesn't work. So then you get a different screen and you try that, and then you get your buddy that's does screens all the time. He tries it, and eventually you end up damaging the connector. Then you look at it, you go, "Oh, see, the connector's damaged. I need a connector." So a lot of times these end up having secondary issues. So kind of have that on your radar screen and know your connector biology. Which connectors tend to just get damaged and which ones really only get damaged when there's a secondary issue. For this one, it has obvious damage. I did check first to say, is there a secondary problem with backlight? So I checked for a short on backlight rail. It's not short, so we're going to go ahead and give this one the benefit of the doubt that it's just the connector. So how do we do this? We're going to take it off with hot air, so we're going to start that with some flux. And I've got the board out, and we do have to pay attention. Is there anything down here like Wi-Fi that can get damaged from hot air? So that's why I took the board out for this. And I don't see any other underfilled chips around nearby, so I don't need to worry about that. But I do want to minimize the heat here on the Wi-Fi chip. So I'm going to kind of pay attention to the direction that I blow my air. And if it's easy enough, I'm going to try to blow the air off the board. So it'll take a little bit to heat up a cold board. And now I'm going to avoid newbie mistake number one, which is pulling pads. So I'm not going to attempt to take this connector off until the anchor pads, like here and here, until they're shiny. See, I can see these middle pins are shiny now. Those are melted, but not the anchors. So I want to make sure that I have full movement of my connector. I've got full movement before I take it off. All right, so there we go. Now it's off. Now, in order to get a new connector on here nicely, I want to give myself some clearance. There's no way that I can just drop another connector on here, seat it with hot air, and have enough solder left behind on those pads to make a good joint. If there was, then I would just do that and be done. but you have to go back and hand tack all of those feet. Each foot is important. So our next step is going to be to remove some of this silicone coating so that we've got some good clearance for when we need to get back in here with an iron and go over all of these joints. Not far from the Eastern Shore, Tidewater, Virginia. Awesome. I grew up in Snow Hill, Maryland, and I just spent a week at my dad's house in Greenbackville, Virginia. Greenbackville, Virginia, which is a funny development. It's been around since the 70s. And then a guy came down there to Greenbackville to make Greenbackville great again. Went into Captain's Cove. This was a few years ago. He tore down the existing kind of old school, kind of community center they had there. And that was from the 70s, and he replaced it with this beautiful new marina club and restaurant. And he renovated the golf course to be instead of this sort of scrub grass kind of golf course that only old men could stand to play at, he made it a beautiful golf course. And he, renovated all this stuff, and his plan was that this was when the housing economy was in a huge boom, that he was going to make all this money renovating Captain's Cove and turning it into this premier Eastern Shore destination. But instead, he ran out of money, and he said, F this, and he left. So he left behind the community of Captain's Cove, which is, a whole bunch of, Eastern Shore rednecks and vacation people, to pay for the giant marina building and restaurant and all of that stuff, which kind of sucked. So Captain's Cove really got screwed. But it's a nice place down there. You can go catch crabs right out of the bay, just like growing up. Alright, so I'm picking underfill, or silicone overcoat. I don't really know what to call this stuff. Waterproofing. I'm just clearing it out a little bit and making sure not to toss any of these components. I just want to make sure that I've got plenty of clearance for my new connector. Alright, so let's clean that up a little bit. And then I will surprise you guys. Have I ever been to Smith Island? Yes, Smith Island cakes. That was one of the things that my dad got into, making a Smith Island cake, which is really hard. A Smith Island cake is like it's almost like taking pancake thin cakes and stacking them on top of each other. But Smith Island is one of those kind of historical cool places in the world. It's one of the places where the dialect on Smith Island is, I think the statistic is that the dialect on Smith Island is closest to the, kind of like UK old school English. So those guys kind of kept their dialect intact since colonial days. So that's one of those kind of field trippy kind of things that every kid on the Eastern Shore that grows up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland or Virginia has to head over to Smith Island at some point. So we certainly did that. Have you seen, says $2 donation Daniel Hawk, have you seen any iPhone 7 that just drained the battery? No, but I think we are starting to see TriStar faults in iPhone 7. TriStar doesn't really happen until the phone reaches a certain age. So everybody that got an iPhone 7 on launch day, it came with the Apple original charger. So everybody's going to be fine until the kids lose the iPhone 7 charger, or you run over it with the lawnmower, or your cat eats it, and then you have to go buy a gas station charger, which is what everybody does. And then after that, you have to wait a long enough time for the gas station charger to actually cause damage and kill your TriStar chip. So just about now, as we're kind of coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the phone, Plus, if you did get TriStar damage while you're under warranty, that would be covered because the phone is unopened, it's not broken, hey, it's not charging, you'd go back to Apple and you'd get it swapped. So we are just going to be coming in the next months to the time where we would expect to see TriStar faults. So rapid draining battery that's not software, you would suspect TriStar. All right, here's what we're gonna do here. In order to help ourselves out, I'm gonna first tin over these pads with leaded solder. After I turn my iron on, of course. Okay, sorry for the bother. I hope you can read my message. Do you know any practical school in LA? Absolutely not. I really, you know, I know it sounds incredibly douchey and arrogant, but I really would not spend money on any other board repair course other than our course. And you know, I think most people kind of in the community kind of feel the same. There's really there's certainly no need to go to any kind of a board repair course where it's not taught by instructors that actually do this all day, every day. So you don't really want to learn your technical proficiency. I remember going to the Mentor guy at CTIA and kind of trolling their little talk where, you know, I asked them like, so do you guys teach people at your board repair course to do micro BGA like TriStar jobs? And he didn't know who I was, so he was like, oh, BGA, you're not ready for that. No, that's really complex, that's really complicated. Well, TriStar jobs, like we just said, are gonna be the single most common board level problem that's gonna walk across your path. So we have this stuff, connectors are dependent upon somebody else breaking that connector. TriStar jobs, that's, you know, gonna happen to everybody out there with a gas station charger at some point. So, you know, those guys are not teaching you how to do the most common board repair that you're gonna see. And I noticed that their Las Vegas training facility is up for sale if anybody wants to buy a $30,000 former Wild PCS training facility. All right, guess what I'm gonna do now? I am going to braid these pads. Shocker. The reason I'm gonna braid these pads, it kind of falls in my line of thinking of braiding is fine as long as you have a good reason and you can articulate that reason. So why am I gonna braid these pads? I don't have to, I could choose not to. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that risk and I'm going to sandpaper these fairy wings because I believe that I'm going to have to hand solder each of the feet of the connector in order to get a good joint. And because I'm going to have to hand solder each of those feet with a really, really tight clearance, you know, that's tight clearance on those other components, I am going to have trouble delivering the heat that I need to on especially some of these ground pins. I'm going to have trouble delivering that heat. So anything that I can do to reduce the requirement for heat is going to help me. So I'm going to replace the lead-free solder that's on there with leaded solder. And so that is why I'm choosing to braid. It's totally optional. You don't have to do it. If you don't like braiding, don't worry about it. But in this case, I got a reason. And so I'm going to come through here and I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to sandpaper these fairy wings. Just to remove the lead-free solder. All right. Would the iPhone SE be recommended by anybody here? Yeah, I would recommend it. It's a phone that doesn't get a whole lot of problems. It's in that nice, you know, sturdy body of the iPhone 5S, which was a great phone. It fits in a pocket, and I hear this donation sound, but I don't see what that says, so sorry about that. Maybe that will come up. All right, let's see. Let's see, I don't really understand electronics repair, but I find board repair relaxing and interesting. Me too! You're doing great work for people, top stuff. Thank you for that. Paul Daniels is gonna order his first iPhone 7 display. Let's get some more flux on there. A bit terrified about the idea of bricking the iPhone 7 home button. Well, the trick to that is to just not over tighten those screws and you'll be fine. And get a quality display. A lot of those 7 home button problems are, you know, primarily bad parts. So rule number 1, rule out bad parts. All right, we're gonna finish this little rodeo. All right, that's good enough. I don't want to be aggressive or obsessive. You don't want to be one of those OCD guys that are going to be bothered if one of these pads isn't quite as clean as the other. Remember, they're all about to get tinned over with leaded solder. My only point was to just, you know, take away some of the lead-free stuff. And there we go. So now I'm going to tin back over these with regular old Kester 6337 leaded solder. And solder brand does make a difference, so you want to get one from a company that's been making solder for a long time, like Kester. Some of the 6337s that are out there that are kind of cheap, crappy, wild PCS brands are gonna give you trouble. They won't have that same consistency. They won't be a quality solder. You can really tell that. They'll be kind of grainy and brittle. You can tell right away when you get a device where somebody used that stuff. All right, let's scroll down a little bit. About iPhone SE. Someone should make FPC socket caps to protect from damage. Braiding the pads, yes. Do you have any advice on where to get iPhone connectors? Well, if you need a connector, your choices are China or somebody that is domestic that already bought from China. We're going to go ahead and tin over these pads. And of the domestic suppliers, there's lots of guys that are out there. Connectors in general seem to pretty much all be the same, but if I had to order from a domestic source, I would pick Jason Gann. There's lots of Jasons in the field now, so Jason Gann from microsolderingsupply.com. Jason does microsoldering all day, every day. So he actually fixes phones, and so that means he's using the same parts and connectors, chips, and things like that that he sells. So if there's a problem, he'll become aware of that pretty quickly. He will know, oh, these are all shitty reballs, or he will know this connector is the wrong one, or something like that. So that's why I think that he's a good source. All right, let's get that back a little bit cleaned up. Okay. Do you guys maintain a list of iPad rehab trained and affiliated technicians? No, and the reason why we don't kind of publish a list like that's a good idea, is because folks that come to the course are in varying stages of their learning curve. There are a lot of folks that are really good. So usually when somebody wants a referral for, you know, hey, who can solder this for me, I'll just ask them where they're from and see if I know someone that I would recommend. I wouldn't recommend, even if you just came to Practical Board Repair School, that's fantastic. But there's no substitute for a long time staring down a microscope, and in order to have that sort of professional proficiency. So I kind of have to see that work coming out of you before I could kind of make a recommendation. All right, so there we go. iPad rehab. Out of all the iPhones, what do you think is the best? Probably iPhone SE, actually. Something that is in that kind of original size. 6S is probably pretty good. 7, I don't like the lack of the headphone jack, but the camera's pretty good, so I'll go with SE. It can run the modern stuff. All right, so I place this connector. And one of the things that's important is to keep it pushed down. I'm putting pressure down into the connector. I want it to be really flat here. And now my goal is to just kind of tack it down in a couple of spots so that it doesn't fly away. And once I tack it down on one side, you can see I still have play in it down at the other side. So I can now swing it, kind of pivot it until I get it in that spot, that exact right spot. All right, so now if I feel like the connector's sitting high, I could put hot air on it right now, and that would help it to sink down. And then after that, there's really no substitute for going by joint and getting these joints soldered in, and then we'll kind of come back and give it that pro finish with some hot air. All right, so let's turn it, and it can, sometimes I'll even tilt the board to kind of like hold it at an angle like this. Let's see if you guys can see that angle. Something like that. So look at, as it is now, the feet are just kind of resting on there. Now my goal is to kind of tickle these joints without getting the plastic of the connector burnt up. These mini hot tweezers are fantastic for this job. Now I would have a hard time on some of these ground joints if I hadn't come through here and replaced that solder with the leaded stuff. All right, so that side is done. Hopefully you guys can see that. Jessa, what do you do when a cap is cracked or missing and you don't have a donor or a way to identify its value? I would take it off and not worry about it. If you don't have a schematic, your only choice is to use something like smart tweezers, and a known good board, which you could then measure. Let's make that nice and in focus for you guys. So I'm going to put a little bit of solder on these, and I'm going to keep that sort of downward pressure. I don't really care about making bridges or anything like that. What I care about is not touching the plastic of the connector. That one you can tell is ground. It's a little bit, requires a little bit more heat. Mini hot tweezers are great because they kind of have this capillary action thing going on where they will deliver solder through the little channel between the two hot tweezers. All right, let's just kind of hit this ground plane here. And let's hit this ground anchor back here. All right, I think I might have a bridge or so that I need to clear in here, which is pretty easy to do. Okay, so that to me means I've got some solder hand tacked on each of those feet. So let's give it a finish with hot air, which will just flow each joint into the, really professional joint structure that you want. So we'll go back up to our regular soldering, desoldering temperature, and we're gonna flow it. All right, why don't you go into training? I do. I train as much as I possibly can, which is once or twice a month for our 5-day course. All right. My first iPhone 7 bricked home button ate the cost. Haven't done another one since. Yeah, I can remember when the iPhone 7 was, kind of new. And some of the guys that come to the course that are Apple authorized folks, I have to keep it on the DL that they come to the course at all. They were saying that the sort of in-house Apple information manual on the iPhone 7 like required them to buy a specialty torque driver for that 7 home button. Okay, so that flowed every joint there. And I'm going to see if there's anything I really want to address before cleaning it up. I think it's good. I'm going to clean that up. So we'll kind of drill back out. And I'm going to clean it first with some Q-tips and alcohol because I want to get the flux while it's still kind of warm. I want to get it out of there. And then if you really want to go for that pro finish, you would ultrasonic the board, just because, you know, like in this connector is a little fleck from the silicone tear down, and no matter how much it looks like all the flux is gone, when you do this kind of Q-tip cleaning, you know, as it cools down, it will solidify and you will see a stickiness. That's not a good pro finish when you turn this device back to the customer and at their next screen swap. All right, now let's put it on an angle, because this is really where we judge the connector, on that angle. So there we go. So look at that. Those are beautiful looking joints. All of those joints, they look like ski slopes. I mean, that looks like factory. So that is how you do a connector. And I am going to put this one in ultrasonic, and then we'll test to see if there is a secondary issue or not. So let me go drop that in there for a few minutes. And I need to come up with a screen, and then we'll troubleshoot to see whether or not we have to fix anything else on that, or did that one just get bona fide connector damage. All right. Thanks for the £5 from Kubrick's 1222. I would love a Udemy course on this. I know the hands-on training is invaluable, but I'm in England. Tell that to the guys that just hiked out here from Tasmania. Yeah, that's what everybody wants. I get it, but that is not, we're just not doing distance learning. I mean, there's really no difference between just watching the YouTube channel like this video. Then Practical Board Repair School is a hands-on storytelling. You know, people, I remember talking to Nate Miner at the last course, because he's a guy that's been around for a long time in the repair community, and he finally came to the course, and I asked him, like, was it, you know, what was the course what you thought it would be? And he was like, yes and no, and I've heard this so many times, that the thing that he got that was the most valuable was 2 or 3 tiny little tweaks of, you know, he's been soldering for a long time, he knows how to fix a lot of stuff. But it was like, you know, when you said, I don't even remember what it was, you know, when you said X, I was like, oh my God, that just saved me so much time. It's those tiny, tiny little things where I have to be watching you, you know, on these monitors in real time. Mark especially is fantastic at technical proficiency. And then just a whole lot of question asking, you know, like we don't, most of the teaching is, you know, somebody asks a question and I say all the time, that is a fantastic question, you tell me the answer. You know, and they'll think about it. If they can't come up with it, I'll ask them another question and they'll figure it out. I know your channel's named iPad Rehab, and you seem to focus on fixing Apple stuff more, although I admit I could be wrong, I haven't seen much of your content. What Android phones would you recommend with decent specs and good repairability? Well, we do fix some of the, you know, we'll fix anything. We'll fix the skee ball machine or the bowling alley machine or a drone or whatever. We fixed a car, we fixed, you know, the BMW taillights. We'll fix anything with a circuit board, and we're definitely looking for more of those odd jobs, which are really fun. I personally am not an Android user, so I don't know. People like the Google Pixel. We have seen 0 of those, so that's probably pretty good for repairability. You know, the iPhones tend to fail more. There's more of them out there, but they do tend to fail more than any other device. All right, if my service position ends, I will hit this hard and seriously consider visiting Honey I Falls. Fantastic. Alrighty. I'm still confused about the ultrasonic cleaner. Do you simply pull it out once it's done and shake excess liquid off? That's a good question. What I do is I'll displace the cleaning fluid with alcohol, and that's what I'm gonna do right now. So that was a good question. What do you do when you pull it out? And the answer is drop it straight into 99% isopropyl alcohol. And then I'll brush it a little bit to just get rid of the, any of the kind of stickiness of the flux that's still on the board, any flecks of things or whatever. And then the alcohol displaces the water from the ultrasonic cleaner, and then the alcohol itself will just evaporate. And I can kind of help that out with a little bit of low heat. So let's take a look and see how this has come out. Now, before I put power through this board, I want to give it a chance to really be dry. There's going to be some liquid now under these shields and stuff, so I want to get that dried off. I'm just going to use a little bit of low heat and a few minutes to answer some questions or see what's going on in chat, and then we'll give this board a test and see if this one is in need of troubleshooting or if it's ready for the done pile. We'll find out. And because I didn't take the shields off of this board, I want to be sure to get it dry under those. Some people put it in a toaster oven to bake or something like that, but mostly you just want to not have any signs of anything wet on the board, and you want to not be able to smell alcohol. All right, so here's our finished connector. So there you go. So it's hard to even tell between the new LCD connector and the front camera connector. They both look totally factory. All right, so we're gonna let that dry for a little bit, and then we'll test. All right, so let's see what else is going on here in chat. When you take it off, rinse in distilled water. Ooh, didn't do that. Why can't you do long distance teaching on Skype or Hangouts? Because I don't want to, and I'm not gonna, and you can't make me. Case closed. I'm a teacher, I teach in person, and that's what I do. All right. Yeah, exactly. It's the same as watching YouTube videos. I really like microsoldering. I'm enjoying it quite a lot. Equipment and parts are really difficult to come by here. Yeah, get into it, Rodrigo. Not quite the same interaction as you are more 121 and you've got a device there with you. No. All right, this is a kind of weird question, but for taking old thermal compound off of a 4.5-year-old laptop CPU to replace the compound, would 92% isopropyl alcohol be good enough? Probably. I know everyone says to use 99%, but we have 92% lying around in my house. Well, we're all about practical. One of the things that you'll see if you use the ones that have a little bit more water is if you let it sit in that stuff for a long time, then that will discolor or oxidize the components, and that makes it really difficult to then troubleshoot faults. So you don't want to pitch a board into some of the lesser more water having, less pure alcohols, because the water will oxidize the board over time. But for cleaning, sure, have at it. It's not going to make that much of a difference. All right. Besides, you can't enjoy lunches and dinners with your classmates if you do Skype teaching. Yeah, that would be gross. All right. Okay, so let's see if that's enough time to test this out. All right, so let's see. Does it smell like alcohol? Nope. All right, great. So let's stick it back in its native housing so that we can see if there's any parts problems here with the native housing. It didn't come with a screen, so we'll throw a screen on there. We'll stick it with its native dock and battery and stuff. Is Sharon still here? I'd hate to have to reassemble my own shed.
Sharon shipping.
Yay!
What?
I'd really hate to have to ship, so never mind. I can't. I'm trying to survive. All right. Is there a better green bucket of known good 6 stuff? This one seems a little janky. Let's see. What's up here? I think I'm just gonna. That's a good 6 screen there. Let's see. Okay, great. All right, Christy, I'm loving your proofed parts stickers. Those are. Yeah, having the students keep them up is a big one. I told the last class to keep up with that. I think they did. All right, so we'll stick a screen on here. Let's see, does this LCD fit into and snap down into the new connector? Seems to be okay. All right. I like your sassy answer. I am full of sassy answers. I am a bottomless pit of sassy answers. Always have been. All right. Big fan here. Mark is gone. Mark is in beautiful Maryland, home sweet home. And unfortunately, he doesn't live in Maryland, so he has to continue on to get to Florida. All right, let's see. That is not working. I'm gonna power it with DC power supply just so that I can make sure that this device can boot rather than asking it to use its native battery or charge, at least for now. All right, let's see what happens if oh, there you go. All right, so I have it connected to DC power. Let's see what happens if I plug in this. And let's hit the power button. And it is not booting. So I can differentiate that this is not a screen issue. I think the connector's fine, but I can tell that according to the DC power supply signature that this phone is, at least right now, it's a little all over the place. So that seems like it is not booting, really flickering around, which kind of is exactly the point, which is yet it's hard to damage an iPhone 6 connector unless you're troubleshooting something else. So let's see if we can take a harder look at this board and try to figure out if there's anything that jumps out at us about why this thing would not boot. There you go. Always, and that's also sort of why our connector jobs are not the cheapest eBay guys, because if it's a 6S connector, there's going to be something else wrong. All right. Okay, so let's see. Nothing's really jumping out at me. All right, I'm going to make sure it's really bone dry with a little bit of heat. Especially under these shields. In fact, I might pop these shields off so that we can see. Warning about isopropyl alcohol. you should do it in a ventilated room because it's bad for your eyes and can cause blindness. That's true if you drink it because of the small percentage of methanol, which will bind to your, what is that, alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme, something like that, and break down to formaldehyde, which can then cause blindness. What kind of connectors are they? iPhone connectors. You know, there's some, I think there's some form of Molex connectors, but they seem to be pretty proprietary. They're not something that is, I don't know if you can't find them, but they're certainly not easy to find if you go looking by pitch and number of pins and things like that. That heat gun must be your friend. He sure is. He's my best friend. Yeah, I'm not sure that Paul Daniels is commenting that methanol causes blindness, which is true. I'm not sure that isopropyl alcohol does that either, although the, you know, like for ethanol, like you can't just go drink the, you know, ethanol that you could buy for chemicals, you know, to use to clean something, for example, because they intentionally put methanol into the ethanol so that it doesn't become Jack Daniels. Or maybe better would be to say so that it doesn't become grain alcohol. All right, let's let that hang out for a second. There was a warning on a bottle I had. Well, it's definitely true for ethanol. All right. I'm gonna get my own dock and my own battery here. All right, where's the screen that I was just using? I have a terrible habit of losing things right in front of my face all the time. Beautiful clicky connector. Feels totally normal. All right, so we're going to use our dock, we're now eliminating the variable of the customer supplied housing. And let's check for charge on my known good battery. 4.3, so that's charged up. 6 battery. All right, now let's prompt this sucker to boot. Will you boot? He says, hell no, I won't boot. He will not boot, and he will not pull any kind of charging current, which, let's make sure it's not this dock. Rule number 1, parts. Always rule out parts, and rule out parts a lot, especially these parts that we use again and again and again all day long. I always want to try a few. All right, let's go back to DC power supply and see if it will boot. All right, prompt, prompt, prompt. All right, it seems to be prompting to boot. So according to DC power supply, this thing seems to be booting with this, just this screen and a dock. So that looks pretty normal. Let's see if it's detected by iTunes. And let's grab this cable. Actually, I'm not sure. This is not the cable I normally use. Let's see if this cable works. Does it connect to iTunes? I hear the detect iTunes, and iTunes seems to be detecting it in normal mode. Yep, okay, so it sees that as a normal phone, which tells us that we have no image. So why do we have no image? We should have image on the screen, I think. We could have a problem with our LCD connector that we just did, or we could have an underlying reason why there's no image on this device. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to look at the connector to see if I have overlooked some kind of a some kind of a explanation. Do I have a cold joint somewhere on here, or something bridged that I didn't see before? So I'm going to kind of tip this up and take a look. I'm pretty happy with all of those joints on that side. I'll look on the other side at an angle so I can really see those feet. Seems okay. Oops, we lost the microscope view. Whoops, sorry about that. Jessa, please read my comment, as I won't follow you anymore if you don't go with schematic, as this is just getting like typical videos. Please don't follow Bassett Safi. That's doesn't make any sense. If you see a broken connector, you put a new connector on. That does not require any reading of a schematic to change a connector. All right, so now let's see if we have any loose dudes here. So that's what so we're looking for any kind of physical problem here at the connector itself. Now, when I started this, I did check for backlight short to ground, which is the common fault. That would be kind of a reason of how you'd kind of get into this problem to begin with. All right, so I don't see nothing is jumping out at me as physical damage. I think the connector is great. It looks totally factory, and I don't see any missing dudes or anybody that looks loose, you know, as I look at it here. So next, I'm going to differentiate whether or not I have an actual backlight problem or if I have an image problem. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to stick this screen, split the screen so that I can see whether or not I have image without having backlight. We're going to differentiate. Is this no image or is this no backlight? So we're going to go back to our setup that booted the phone, stick a dock and DC power supply. Alrighty. You guys can tell me if you have any clue what schematics douchebag guy is talking about. Doesn't make any sense to me in the least. All right, so now we're going to look. Do we have no image or no backlight? All right, so we got to get this thing to boot. All right, so it looks like it is booting according to DC power supply, and we should hear it come up with our iTunes. And we see no image. All right, so this is not a no backlight fault. This is a no image fault. So why do we have no image? Let's find out. This is like a fantastic example of exactly, you know, it's always so funny. Like the whole intro to this repair was, you know, it's really hard to damage a 6 connector unless there's really something else wrong with it. So why does this phone have no image? The classic problem for no image in an iPhone 6 is long screw damage. This does not have long screw damage. All right, so let's try to figure out why we don't have image. So now we do need to understand what does it take to produce image on this thing. So there's image power and there's image data. We need to clean out these guys up here in order to investigate image power. Alrighty. He wants you to use schematic in your video. Well, if we have a reason to use the schematic, we sure will. If we don't, then we sure won't. Alright, now these in here are filters that we want to make sure nobody got knocked. So we got to dig them out a little bit so that we can really be sure nobody's loose. These guys are all going to be part of the act of detecting that a screen has been plugged into the LCD connector. Nothing's ever easy. Okay. All right, retranslating Bassett's request. Let's see. Retranslating Jessa, please show the schematics for free, even though you don't even need schematics to do a connector. I'm about to leave because of this. I totally agree. Yes, that's how it was before, but recently she doesn't use it at all. This is a hoot. You tell me why I need to use the schematics to take a broken connector and make a good connector. Let me ask you a question. If you go home tonight and you find that that the light switch in your house, the kids have ripped it off the wall, and you need to put another one in there, do you need to look up at how your house is wired, or are you just going to change it out? I mean, that's just nuts. Police are going to start thinking I'm running a pot farm in this house. Hydroponics orders, LED lamp orders. All right. I just ordered a light ring for my microscope. Fantastic. Let's see. Jessa, people have spoken. I want to hear your opinion. Cheap USB microscope, heavens no. Versus magnifying glass, heavens no. If I get better, I promise I'll buy better equipment. Well, you're not going to get better if you try to use really, really poor equipment. Think about like learning to use chopsticks. You know, if you tried to learn how to use chopsticks and you had some good chopsticks, that could pick stuff up, you would have a lot better chance of learning how to actually pick stuff up and use them in developing that dexterity. If you start off trying to use chopsticks and you're going to go for like 2 toilet paper rolls, it's going to be really difficult. No one uses the USB microscopes professionally because it's a terrible disconnect for your hand-eye coordination. It's very difficult. Magnifying glass, that's really also very, very difficult. All right, iPad rehab, fix my iPhone 6 backlight, fantastic. All right, Jessa, say hola amigos. Slow down, I need schematics to replace the light bulb. Exactly, I will not say the R word, I'm not doing that. I've given up on that. All right. Yeah, that's what I was answering something on iFixit Answers. that was people asking about equipment, and they're like, what's the budget equipment? Where's the budget? Where's the cheap stuff? I'm like, this is the cheap stuff. Go to an industrial manufacturing lab. Go to a research lab. The $10,000 to $100,000 to set up equipment, that's the good stuff. This is the cheap stuff. All right, so now we need to do some measuring and just try to figure out why do we have no image. I mean, I'd hate to have to actually use the schematics on this one just to kind of prove a point, because I don't like to get bossed around by douchebags. But we may have to. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to check to see whether or not we have a pathway through our image data line. So these guys all need to talk to the connector. So each of these, you can look it up on the schematic. These guys all carry image data. Why are you not talking to him? What? There you go. Let's see, is that joint fine? I think it is. Yeah, joint at the connector's fine. That must just be hard to get a bead on that. Yep, all right, let's clean that off a little bit. Yep, all right, seems fine. Now let's check to see some of our image filters. Those all seem fine. Now we're going to check for short to ground. So I'm going to put let's focus that up. All right, so let's put a probe on ground and see, do any of these lines talk to ground? That shouldn't. All right, so I don't find any short to ground. If you do look up on the schematics, then you would find that these guys supply your image, some of your image power rails. There's a few different image power rails that come mostly from Chestnut. Now these guys all, most of these are filters that need to talk through to the connector, that are going to, if you look up in the schematic, you could figure out which one of those is the LCD power enable and which ones are reset and things like that. So the next thing that you'd want to do at board level would be to compare this each line here, and you can look up on the schematic, there's a whole bunch of them that are going to be data lines for the process of detecting a screen and image data, producing that image data, as well as image power rails. And you would want to see if there's a partial short, an open line, or a short circuit somewhere by comparing to a known good connector. But before that, just because I don't see any physical damage, and specifically the number one cause of no image in iPhone 6 would be long screw damage, I could take off the shield and just kind of look at Chestnut, but before I do anything else, I just don't feel that there should be a problem here given the physical appearance of everything that I'm looking at. So that's one of Christy's proofed screens, but I think I'm gonna just grab a different screen. I'm gonna try a couple of screens here just to make sure that we don't spend time troubleshooting a board problem that doesn't exist. So we did try our known good parts, but DC power, are you booting? Seems to be booting. Are you booting? Looks like you're booting. All right, I don't see any image or backlight with this screen. Just want to kind of rule that out. And I just want to make sure that we are really troubleshooting an image fault, not a backlight fault. So let's grab another screen that we can kind of, another janky screen. And that's the one that we tried. Let's just rule it out on this screen. All right, let's see. All right, so I'm going to prompt to boot with another screen where I can really differentiate backlight from image. And I don't see image. All right, so I don't see image there. Let's see if I'm trying to creatively think of how I can not use the schematic. It's getting really difficult to not use the schematic at this point, but I'm really want to try. So let's see what I can remember from the iPhone 6 image line. All right, so let's check. Let's see if we can find our way to the Chestnut image power rails on our own and do a little voltage measurement. So we've got a screen connected here. And let's see. All right, so let's see, what can we measure around here? All right, then we're going to check some Chestnut voltages, which provide image power and touch power. Alrighty, let's see. Let's see, so I've got a multimeter on voltage, and I'm going to see what my voltages are around this area. I'm not really sure. I think that one's main. Is it? Let's see. Nope, that's 5V7. That's a Chestnut output, which is present. That's main. That's LCM boost, which is present. That's minus 5V7, which is the other Chestnut output. I think this is back to audio 1.8. I think one of these, maybe that one. Yep, 5V7. All right, so it looks like our Chestnut outputs are present. So now we are stuck with having to try and take one of these difficult measurements here. And I don't remember, and I refuse to look on the schematic. We're going to try to get a measurement on these guys here. So that's a tough measurement to take. All right, let's see. Ground and this guy, negative 5V7. I think this is the one I want, 1V8. Nope, that's negative 5V7. How about you? You, I think, are the ground side of a cap. All right, so let's see. Now I'm really going to be struggling to know which pins I'm supposed to be at. All right, one of these dudes around here should be LCM power enable 1.8. I think it's him. How about your neighbors? You're 1.8 as well. You're 1.8. What are you? You're 1.8. You're 5V7. All right. All of that seems to be largely in order. There's one line I can't measure, the one that's kind of in here. I think it's this guy. And I forget who he's supposed to talk to. Let me just make sure he's on the board. All right, so it doesn't seem like there's a power problem for the image. So let's really look hard and see if there's a connector reason. Let's see. What I'm going to do is just make sure I have continuity between the pins and the pads, just to rule that out. Let's see. It sounds like you guys are talking about microscopes. So I'm just trying to take a measurement sort of from out at the edge of the pad to make sure I have continuity through to the inside pin of the connector. Let's check our backlight filter. So we have continuity through our backlight filter. Let's do a diode measurement to ground on backlight. Let's see. Diode mode measurement to ground. 0.522, that's normal. 0.522. Yep, all of that's normal, so it doesn't seem like there's a backlight problem. All right, so there really doesn't seem like there's any reason that's you know, obvious at all. So we're going to have to put our eyes on the chestnut area. So I'm going to take this shield off so that we can look in there, and then after that we're going to have to look for kind of more atypical problems, which means taking diode mode readings down the connector and comparing that to known good to see if we can find if there's a line down like within the CPU. That would be our next step. But really, you know, this is you know, the history or this kind of stories don't tend to be weird. They tend to be standard. So this one's a little bit tough because it's hard to damage connectors unless there's an underlying problem. But underlying problems that are weird don't really happen. So it's a little bit tough. All right, so we're going to look here at our chestnut area. You know, looking to see like, is there any kind of like weird water damage or anything like that, and there's not. Let's look back here. I'm looking to see if there's any like little resistors that are knocked off the board or any kind of sign of prior repair of touch, Mason or Cumulus, which can take out image. I don't think so, but we've ultrasonic the board now, so we don't really know. So I'm looking for signs of heat. That would kind of be a little bit of a tell on that. I don't see any. I'll look over here for sort of signs of heat, and I don't really see any. So now we're really just left at kind of diode mode going down the connector. Let me stare really hard at this connector again to see if there's any reason why it is not making good contact. Let's just check this one little foot here and make sure we're good. Are we okay there? I mean, it really looks factory. It looks totally professional. All right, this side. That seems to be pretty good. All right, let's see. Nothing is knocked off or loose. This one kind of jumped out at me. This guy here. I think that's just kind of maybe from braiding, and I'm pretty sure he's a cap, so that wouldn't really matter. All right, so now we really don't have any choice except for to diode mode down the connector and try to figure out a difference between this board and some other board. So let's grab this board. All right. She needs a dual setup with open broadcaster to show the scope just like the others do. Oh yeah, I wasn't doing that the whole time. Something like that? Would that work for you? All right. Okay, so we're gonna diode mode and compare between these two boards. So let's see what we have going on. On this side, 0.6, 0, 0.4, 0.4, 0, 0.4, 0.4, 0, all that's normal, 0.4, 0.4, 0, 0.4, 0.4, 0, and 0.305. So the only ones that I want to check over here on the known good are this one, which was a match, 0.6, and this one, 0.3, and that's also a match. All right, so let's flip and try the other side of the connector. Now this is the side where there's sort of like varied data. All right, so we're gonna start with our no image board. 0.5, 0.6, and OL. OL. So let's check those four. Those are all backlight, so it doesn't really matter, but let's see. 0.5, 0.6, OL, OL. All right. Now let's check the next set of four. 0.5, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. All right, so this is where we're really interested, that you could have a fault in here. 0.5, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. All right, and next, let's see, we did a set of four, we did a set of four. 0.4, 0.4, 0.6, and 0.6. All right, so over here, we did our set of four, we did our set of four. 0.4, 0.4, 0.6, 0.6, that's a match, 3 left. Bad board says 0.5, OL, climbing, that one takes a while, let's see. You know, 1.3 and going up. So on this board, we have OL on the second pin. I'm not sure there's supposed to be an OL, maybe not. All right, so let's see. Do we have OL on that second pin over here as well? 0.5, is this also OL? All right, so on our other board, we had OL there. Here we have 1.3. And this seems to be also 1.3. So this pin, you know, 1.3 is very high, and it's, you know, at some point the multimeter would call that OL. All right, so that's OL. Let's look closely then at that joint on that second pin there to see, do we have a connector problem there? We really don't. I mean, that totally looks fine on there. All right, so let's see. That guy is going to be important for image. So let's see. Gosh, I wish, maybe I can figure it out. I really want to avoid using schematics. Let's see. Let's see if we can. All right, so we're gonna have to just use this board to figure out, who do you talk to? All right, I gotta blow that out a little bit. Man, this is like going to way too much effort to avoid looking that up real quick. But I will not be bossed around on the internet. So now we're looking to see, like, if we've got a loose filter problem on that line. So we have to know which filter is that line talking to. All right. Program a multimeter beep. That'd be pretty funny. Okay, so let's see. Pin 2, who do you talk to? Alright, so you talk to those guys. Alright. Pin 2. On our bad board, do you talk to him? And all the way through? You do? Alright. Alright, on the bad board, our reading, it's going to be really close. OL, and on this board, .3. let's measure here. All right, I think we're gonna have to look up that that guy. I know he's an important one. Let's see who he is. Wait, guys, if we start bossing Jessa around and demand that she don't look at schematics, then she'll have to check them. Maybe. Good luck. Or she'll just quit. She'll say, fuck this. PN 5v7. PN 5v7. PN 5v7. Alright. Let's see. Where's another place that we could get a reading on that? Pretty sure we already saw that that voltage was there. Alright, we're gonna just check to see. So I had to look it up, was forced to look it up, that the pin 2 is the PN 5v7 line, which is an image power rail, I believe. I'd hate to have to look at the schematic to confirm that. Nobody is really loose here, I don't think. Are you loose? Come on, just be loose so that I have an answer here. Come on, be loose. You're not loose? Yay! He is loose. There we go. Look at that. You look a little bit loose, buddy. Now you're definitely loose. All right, let's stick him back down. Let's see. Let's see. Alrighty. Jessa is a natural, staying up over midnight to have a stress-free drive anytime, then sleep all day. Jessa is still living the life of a kid in a college dorm. But I would like to point out that it's not just me, that Christy is also working at 11:08 p.m.
It's not midnight yet. What are they talking about?
Yeah, it's not midnight yet. It's a totally normal working hour. It's always a shock when people are like, oh, what time do you close? I don't know, 2 or 3 a.m. Something to the tune of that. Need to get a little bit more solder on that pad under there. Really need to switch out to my not magnetic tweezers. That will help me. Alright, on the side that was loose and therefore potentially oxidized, we're going to give it a little help. No. You need to be a good joint, bro. Still don't think you're behaving. You're not really acting like I want you to. I'm going to have to take you off and spank you. I'd hate to have to stick a jumper on you just to rule this out. Now you're making me get too dangerously close to burning up the plastic on my connector. And if that happens, I'm going to feed you to Underdog for sure. That is where I draw the line. Alright, get out of here. We're going to tin up your pads. Nope, get out. No, you had a chance. You didn't want to stick on there. And now we're going to have to tin your pads. That's just the way it is. If you wanted to stay in your spot, you could have stayed in your spot when I asked you to. But you didn't. You were bad. You're a bad filter. All right. Now, go back home. Where do you go, dude? Kind of still don't really like the way he looks. Don't like him. Alrighty. Let's clean that up. So much for my short, easy connector video. Nothing's ever easy. All right. I'm gonna replace him with a jumper just to rule that out. Kind of just I don't like the looks of that guy. Don't like his attitude. All right, we're gonna stick you over there. And we are going to put a temporary troubleshooting jumper in your spot. Just to rule out variables, always eliminating variables. So we want to eliminate the variable that there's a problem with that filter himself or the way he's attaching to the pad. So we're going to eliminate that variable with a jumper. Just for now. Just for now. Oh, we need to, we're really in close for you guys to see what's what. There we go. Do I have to do shipping this week? Are we covered for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I will be here tomorrow and Wednesday.
Okay.
And can get anything early out on Thursday.
Alrighty. Okay. And now let's see if that makes a difference on our screen. I had to drink coffee tonight, Christy, at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Sad, sad day. And
Why is that sad?
because it's like an old lady kind of thing to do. I mean, it's like Gratty would order coffee at Bob Evans with like country fried steak. It's disgusting. Even if it was lunchtime. You're drinking coffee too? Oh my god! From the gas station as well?
Yeah.
Did they make it? Did they had to like tip the thing over and give me like the dregs of coffee that we
Mine's
both
not,
know they
like,
made at 9
big
a.m.
cappuccino stuff. So.
Oh. Well, fancy.
Yeah.
I had to drink house blend gas station coffee. It's a sad, sad day. All right. Boo, where's my fucking image? All right, let's see. Are you actually booting, mofo? Seems to be booting, and it has no image. Why do you have no image when everything seems fine? When everything seems fine. All right, let's see. Whoa, what? This is more than a simple connector change out, isn't it? Oh, yes, it is. Let's see. Connect the module to a speaker, then play some random half-second audio clip on a public sounds uploaded website so we control Jessa. That sounds super fun. All right, dip the phone in rice, some people say. Why do the volume buttons make the board rotate? Do they? Does working with small components make it more likely to get carpal tunnel syndrome? I don't think so. It makes you more likely to get some kind of eye strain, I think. Or just stay really still, which is, you know, super unhealthy. Jess is going to smash that board. Probably not. Jessa is going to go get a Diet Coke. Poor Pepe Jägermeister cannot hold his eyes open anymore because this is so boring. Sorry about that. Doing the best we can. Let's see. So iTunes is detecting this phone, I think. Let's see. We want to make sure that this is not just booting to DFU. It is not, so it should have a display. All right, I really want to, I'm gonna go grab, I do this all the time and get in serious trouble. I'm gonna grab a fresh screen. Bad, Jessica. Don't tell anybody. Do not rat me out for messing around with a. That is a 6 plus. That's not gonna work. Let's 6 plus. New fresh screen, hot off the presses. Oh wait, is this a big stack of 6 screens? Why are they over here? Are they like in the not working pile?
I do not know.
I don't know either. All right, let's see. Coke still confirmed. What does that mean? Coke, which of you guys is on Coke? Coke confirmed. The most important thing in the lab that you haven't got is a coffee machine. We do have a coffee machine, but I think it's an old one from my house. Do you ever do you ever make Keurig coffees?
Here?
Christy? Yeah.
Yeah,
You do? Is that machine fine?
it works. I just,
Mm.
you know, like to
Just
have,
like that gas station.
I do. I like the English toffee, basically hot chocolate.
Okay, wait, don't we have a big thing of hot chocolate in here? Because I know Sunday's kids were drinking cold chocolate today,
We
which
do,
I
but
did
that's
not know
English
that's really a
coffee.
thing. I would like to see this pulling normal charging current, which it's not. And it should be. Why are you not pulling normal charging current? Let's get a different cable and love parts. Is this job done? This looks done. Let me check on that. Okay. Why do processor makers name their processors after things that are hot? Don't you want people to think your CPU runs cool? Coffee Lake is, That's interesting. The processor in the iPhones are like Maui, Antigua. They're all kind of like tropical island kind of things. All right, let's see. Do you pull normal charging current? Why don't you pull normal charging current, you piece of shit? I can't imagine. Let's see. The relationship between image. That's a tough one. Backlight, yes, but not image. Let's see. All right. Okay, here's where we're going to go with this now. This thing, I'm actually going to stick it on a battery and see if it also does not pull normal charging current on a battery. So remember way back when we were first testing this out of Ultrasonic that it did not pull normal charging current, and initially it didn't boot. So we are going to go with that as being related to why we don't have image. So let's see. So it is pulling low charging current. Well, it was. This is still kind of, that's still kind of like low. That's definitely low, like kind of DFU. Oh, now it's normal. Why are you acting like that? Well, it's still a little bit low. All right, now let's see. Are you on? Are you booted off this battery? Yep. All right, so my kind of, yeah, that is inappropriately low. That should be higher than that. So low charging current in an otherwise, looks fine. No, note doesn't say anything was up with it. He, let's look at the housing for any sign of drop or bend. Yeah, it's a little bent. Not terribly though. I'm gonna stick it back on the native dock. So where I'm going with this is it possible for a conventional problem like a TriStar problem to cause no image, which really I haven't seen before. I've never seen that before. But you could make a theory that it is. I'd hate to show you the schematic, so I'm going to leave that as homework. Look it up on your own, and you tell me what is in common between TriStar. Look at all the lines in and out of TriStar and compare that to Chestnut. But even still, it seems like our Chestnut outputs are there, so that's kind of a hard sell. I've never seen it before. It doesn't sound like a very good theory, but it is kind of one possibility. All right, let's see whether or not we have a bona fide actual charging issue here or not by going back to the native dock here. And we just are continually ruling out parts problems. All right, let's see. All right, so this is this same battery with the native dock. So let's change that battery out to, again, just keep ruling out parts. Ruling out, rule number 1. You don't have a board problem until you know you don't have a parts problem. Let's stick his native battery on this and see if it can pull normal charging current with that battery. Alrighty. This is getting super boring for stream for sure. Alright, this seems to be okay with that battery. At least I think it is. Nope, maybe not. Yep, maybe is. Alright, so with that native battery, it seems that is normal. Alright, so we'll go with failed theory that there's a relationship between a global charging problem and a no image problem. That is going to be a red herring because it is pulling normal charging current with this battery dock combination. All right, so we have ruled out parts, and I'm going to label this one as it had a low current on that battery so that it gets documented. Let's see. All right, low charging current. All right, so we'll stick that over off to the side. All right, let's pull this. And we still have an image problem. And it's still connecting iTunes as normal. All right, so now we are really going to have to confirm that we have our voltages present for image power. All right, so now there's no way to avoid having to be systematic and look at the schematic now. Wah, wah, wah. All right, so what we've done so far is we have replaced a connector on an iPhone 6 that had obvious physical damage to the connector. And the connector looks great. There's really not going to be a problem with the connector itself, in my opinion. And but we're still not getting image. You know, we're not getting backlight, but we're not getting image either, which is kind of you know, image before backlight. So that kind of acts like this thing maybe doesn't recognize that there is a screen detected, or it's not putting out some kind of image voltage. So we looked down the connector and we compared in diode mode, and we did not see any difference between the a known good connector or a known good iPhone 6 and this one. So I'm looking at the connector itself to just kind of rule out connector, since that is variable since we made that change. You know, on the 6, they are less prissy, but on the 6S, any tiny inconsistency in these pins where they can't make that perfect contact will give you a problem. But I just don't see that. I don't see that being a problem here on this one. Seems legit. 100% tested working, baby. All right. Let me look at that one joint. There's one joint that's not my favorite, but I think he's probably okay. And we had continuity in through the connector on all of these dudes. All right, so now we really don't have a choice but to assess whether or not we are getting our image voltages present. We checked a lot of them, but we didn't do it systematically, and I don't think we checked the 1V8. We didn't see that one. That capacitor looks a little discolored there. See that? That looks a little bit dark on one side. All right, so let's check this line. All right, there's no choice. We have to look at the schematic. So let's just go do it. All right, screen. We'll start here with ZXW tools. This is where I'm going with this. 1V8 LCM connector. That is an image power rail, and it's going to have to be there, and that's the one that we were not able to check. So let's find the iPhone 6. Where were we? That's 4. iPhone 6 schematic. iPhone 6. This question is coming from pure ignorance and is probably something you already checked, but could it be a battery issue? Tell me how that would possibly create a fault that is, yes, it boots, but has no image. How would that relate to battery in any way? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's look at J 2019. So control find J 2019. All right, so I'm guessing that you guys can't hear that. Yeah, so, that's because I remember that. We used to, screen quit working, so Mark set it up. Let's see what he did. Audio input seems okay. All right, don't know what's up with that. Welcome to the Silent Jessa stream. It's all fucked up. Jessa, iPhone 8 will no longer have Touch ID. Face ID. Yes, Mark and buddies were riffing on whether or not it would be able to recognize different ball sacks today, all day long. Okay, so we have no choice now but to we're really kind of like at the end of things that to rule out, and we are here at the 1v8 image power line, and we do have a kind of an odd looking cap on that line, which we did test for a full short to ground and we didn't see that. We also did a diode mode test on that line and nothing came up short or open on that side. Anyway, let's repeat that. All right, do we have a short to ground? Nope, it's 0.312. 0.312. And where is our other one? Pretty sure we already checked this. 0.342. That's unlikely to be a significant difference. All right, but nevertheless, we need to get a probe on there and see whether or not we have that 1v8 going to the connector. So let's see. Let's do this. Let's take him off and leave a long wire so that we can measure on the wire. How about that? Let's do that. Let's do that. All right, so he's off. And we are going to put a long jumper there, which means I need to cut a long one. Let's see, here's a piece of braid. That we can actually use to get a voltage reading on. Then I think after this would be something that I want to get other shit done and don't want to spend too much time on any one problem. It's the Walmart approach to board repair for iPhones. These aren't $10,000 boards, so it never makes sense to, you know, really spend a super long time like this on any one board. It just happened to be a quite beautiful connector, I thought. Alright, so let's get this not touching anybody else. Kind of leave him to be stuck in the flux. Don't touch that mofo. Alright, so now what we've done is we've put a jumper there on 1v8 and we've left it long so that we can test to see whether or not we're getting that voltage, that 1v8 at the connector. All right, so that means fire this puppy up again. So we're going to connect the digitizer and the LCD. And we are going to boot the phone and measure voltage. Where is the dock and battery? Why am I always losing docks and batteries? Dock, found you, mofo. And battery, let's see. Once I get my laptop back from the replacement shipper, I'll make Jessa a good static site. What does that mean? It's a good static site. It's a good static site. Static? That sounds bad. We try to avoid static around here as much we can. Alrighty. DC power supply says boot, boot, boot. Boot, boot, boot. Are you booting? No image. Okay. And now we can see and get a reading on there with a multimeter on our wire. All right, so I'm gonna am not going to expect there to be image voltages unless I should have an image. That's why I'll connect to iTunes. I want to hear that connect sound so that I know that image should be present. All right, let's get this so that you guys can see. Connect to iTunes, you turd. 1.8. All right, so I am getting my 1.8 image voltage there. And I'm getting my minus 5V7 there. And I forget where my plus 5V7, was it this? No. Where's my plus 5V7? I gotta look that up. Minus 5V7 is here, I think. Let's see. Minus 5V7 is those two guys. And plus 5V7 is the little one. All right. We're going to do our chestnut voltages here at the connector. I'd like to hear it connect, disconnect to iTunes. Why are you not making the connect, disconnect to iTunes? Is it because this dock is a piece of shit? I'm going to go with yes. All right, switch that out. Alrighty. Okay, let's test for our 5V7 image voltages. Let's get super close. All right, so voltage mode, I think it's here, minus 5V7, and here, plus 5V7, minus 5V7, plus 5V7. Well, that really points to there not being a single goddamn thing wrong with image. So here's the deal with these kinds of problems. I mean, this is really kind of a great, like, in-depth troubleshooting example where, you know, for any problem like image, you can look at the schematic and figure out how does this function get power, which we did. We figured out that it needs power from 1V8 LCM connector, and it needs power from the chestnut outputs, minus 5V7 and plus 5V7. All of those are present local to the connector itself. And then next you have to think about, okay, how does that function get data, ones and zeros? How does it know what it's supposed to do? How does it actually produce an image? And the answer to that is all those other lines are going to go pretty much back to the CPU. So the only way that you could differentiate a problem on those lines, you can't really sit there and measure ones and zeros. That doesn't really make sense. You don't know what they're supposed to be. You wouldn't really be able to compare. All you can do is to check for a problem in the line, a low resistance meaning short to ground, or an open line meaning there's a break in the path. And so from what we can tell, the diode mode is our method of measuring the relative resistance in the line, and we don't see a difference in diode mode between a good connector that should have image and this connector. So we can't identify any problem on the image line. The only thing that really, you know, really isn't but potentially could be would just be that, you know, for some reason, even though it looks fine, that the screen is not making connection, or there's some sort of a problem with the, you know, like a software problem with the CPU's ability to recognize, yes, this is a screen. But even those are all weak, because that would all sort of translate into Chestnut not putting its outputs, and it is putting its outputs. So really everything that we measure that we would typically scour a problem with: power, short to ground, open, not present; data, short to ground, you know, open, not present. Nothing is showing us a defect on why this phone wouldn't have image, which is why I kind of keep going back to, is this a just parts problem. But we've, put a few different screens on here, so like it's really narrow now at this point. Either we messed up on the diode mode reading and we failed to notice a fault. Let's take this out from power. Or we have an open line between these little filters where we're measuring, that one of them is kind of, not seated down on the board, or that the connector itself, which, this is a pro connector. I mean, that connector is totally factory. That the connector is somehow just not working. I mean, I guess we could take away some of this extra solder here and make an argument that on this side of the connector that, it's preventing the screen, but it feels like it clicks into place, so I don't think that's very likely really at all. We can take some of that away. Also, which we kind of ruled out early on, but just know that long screw damage is the most common cause of no image, and in an iPhone 6, which this one does not have. And then second to that would be auto booting to DFU mode, which also we have ruled that out. This phone is not auto booting to DFU. I really don't think that we have a connector problem, but we can hit these dudes again. We measured for continuity from sort of, out on these pads to inside the connector, and we had continuity all the way down the line. Yeah, I think that, what you could start doing is just kind of taking filters and just to troubleshoot, turn them into jumper wires. I do that. Mark finds that super annoying when he gets a board I've been working on that is, hey, look, all of everything is now a jumper. I'm trying to just kind of like really feel the foot of these. And I think these were all fine to begin with. Make sure our filters are down, our data chokes. That guy can stay there like that. This side is just fucking beautiful. I just don't think there's anything wrong there. Take away a little bit of solder here at the end. What's that little doohickey? Some pad from some ancient thing. And they're just all perfect already. These caps that are in the front row don't, like you could knock off those guys. This guy always kind of bothered me a little bit. It's got a little redness on the end. I might look into that, like what line is that? Why are you a little bit red? But it's probably just from braiding. The filters here in the second row, filters have to be there. They're important. And they can't be a little bit loose or anything. The discoloration on these caps kind of bothers me, but and I don't remember taking a dude off over here. Are you supposed to be a filter here? Who are you? Why are you missing? I don't remember you being gone. Usually if I knock something off, I notice it. Alright. Oh, fuck me. It's a fucking filter. God fucking damn it. Wow. Damn. Trolled. Trolled. Alright, here we go. We're missing a dude. Which I assume has been missing this entire time. You know, usually if you knock something off, like when clearing things, you notice it, you know. But you always kind of have the, you know, like here, you know, like this guy, that cap is now gone, but he was there. This guy, once you use hot air to do kind of like seat the connector, then anything is going to look like no stuff instead of missing. I have no idea at what point we lost that guy. I'm guessing early on. So he's going to need to be there. He's a filter. This guy over here that is missing is a cap. So this guy, let's see, who is you? All right, so let's go to screen. And this guy is a filter. Filters you can't not have. Who is it? FL2001. Trolled. FL2001. Piece of fucking shit. Alright, so touch to sage. Both of those are words that mean touch. VCM in. Let's see, where does that go? This is all part of touch. But you could probably make an argument that that there's a relationship between touch and image. I mean, there certainly is here on this, the LCM to AP hypha B-sync that goes straight under the Mason. That's the line that causes the gray bars in touch disease. So this guy needs to be there. So we are gonna just stick a, well, we could probably just grab him off of the other board. Where was that other board? I don't know. When did that guy get knocked off? How long has that guy been missing? The whole time or just now? I don't know. Okay, let's get some alcohol on there. Lewis is having fun. What does that mean? Lewis is not around as far as I know. Weird buffering, dropouts, and skips. Seems okay now. Twitch seems better, but not by much. Lewis is having fun. Oh, does that mean because he's, in theory, fucking with my stream? Could be. Alrighty. Probably the ultrasonic knocked it off. I don't think so. Probably I knocked it off. Lewis says he can't even get enough bandwidth to stream and process credit cards at the same time. Yes. Doesn't she live in New York? I live in upstate New York. And we pay for the creme de la internet. The best internet that you can get in this whole town. For whatever shit internet you guys actually get. Something like $300 a month. Crazy. Alright, let's see if that makes any difference. And if not, then that will be a time limit for me for any one repair. And honestly, for a connector job, I would be unlikely to come back to it, and I would just chalk it up to, I can't win them all. that would go into the, you don't want to spend too much time on a board that has crossed the line from making sense to repair. You know, like everybody else that is in queue, which is a ton of repairs coming off of vacation. Every one of them doesn't want to sit here while I fuck around with, why doesn't a board that seems like it should have image have no image? Fuck me, fucking trolled. Then if that didn't work, then it would be a really, you know, what's left? Power's there, data lines are there, diode mode revealed nothing. And at some point, you know, this was, I'd like to go back and see, did I knock that thing off at the very beginning? And therefore, then using hot air to remove the connector, flowed the pads into dots so that they looked like a no stuff. Because otherwise, you know, it's obvious when you knock stuff off the board. All right, so there you go. That is how you do a professional connector on an iPhone. You knock shit off the board, you don't notice it like a noob, and then you spend, you know, touch is working, and then you spend a couple of hours going through every possible fault that you could have that would generate no image on an iPhone 6, and then ultimately notice, oh, look, little fucking filters come on. I really want to know if I would guess that I knocked that off in 9 seconds into this repair, clearing off the silicone, probably is what happened. But there you go. At least that, I'll stick with that is a, I think that's a pretty good thing, you know, kind of anyway, because it really kind of shows you how thought processes work and how you would work through a problem. And honestly, at this point, I feel like we have exhausted every possibility. Nothing else is declaring itself. I mean, really, there is no other fault for image. All right, so we did do full inspection many times, just missed it like a fucking noob. All right, there we go. Let's see. That's what I hate about professionals, when they get all snobbish, pretentious about their rarefied air, and really it's more like this that we've just seen. Yeah, it is. You know, this thing's fixed, and I do think that's a good actual connector job, and I think it's probably a pretty good stream on how you would exhaustively go through and prioritize what kind of faults. You know, first would be parts, because it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with that connector. It doesn't look like there's any water damage or physical damage or anything that would guide you. I think that, you know, you can learn from this stream that you would ignore backlight, because this is not a backlight fault, it was an image. How you have to differentiate backlight from image is completely different thinking. You wouldn't want to go replace the whole backlight circuit for this, because it was an image problem all along. So differentiating backlight and image, I think, is important. And then kind of like looking at how the line works, data and power, and using voltage testing to confirm that you've got your power rails there, and then using diode mode compared to known good to see, you know, to see what's up with the data line rails. And we did check that rail. Let's see, does it not, where does it go? Let's see, it goes into, yeah, it goes into pin 1, which was a 1.3 on both. So that's one of those things where on, let me show you that. We did that, you know, we were here in diode mode. We should have picked that up, but this is one of those things people ask a lot about. Why use red probe on ground instead of black? Well, because most of these values with red probe on ground are very small. But this was a case where it wasn't. This value was 1.3 in the known good, and it was 1.3 in the other one. Because this, you know, where does this even go? It goes from here to where? You know, let's see, CPU or where you go, bro? Let's click your other side. Oh yeah, these guys. I've been to these guys before. Yeah, those guys. Those guys are absolutely image guys. I've knocked those guys off before when doing some kind of a mason job, and it definitely fucks up image. Yeah, but they go from, let's look on the other side. From Mason, the other one goes to over here, which probably goes to, I don't know, CPU? Nope, more Mason, yeah. So I do think that one, I think that we probably already knew that from before, but now you guys know for sure that when you're looking at the connector and you had no image and the line that was at fault was ultimately named, what is it called? The line that was at fault here was ultimately this one, touch to Sage VCM in. Touch to Sage doesn't sound like it would cause no image, but it damn sure does. It causes, hey, I don't know there's a screen. It had no image and no backlight. And as soon as you put it back, it knows there's a screen. So now we know that this line is practically important for troubleshooting no image. And honestly, it's little things like this, these kind of like oddball weird repairs where, you know, it would be not atypical to overlook that line when troubleshooting an image fault. If you were looking for why does this not have image, because touch to Sage, that's touch. I'll work on touch after I get image. So now you can kind of go back and see that, let's say in a water damaged phone, if you are now missing, and this happens to people a lot, this particular fault. Where did we go? Stop that. No, I don't want to do that. Move over. If we follow this line and we see how it goes to these Sagey resistors, these guys, see these resistors, these little 0 ohm resistors, these two dudes, these guys live next to the Mason chip. So on the back of the board, they live right here. So those guys get knocked off or sucked in or are missing and kind of inadvertently during a touch job. So if you're troubleshooting a touch job and you have no image, make sure you didn't knock those guys off, because now we can definitely say that would cause no image. Or water damage. Let's say just that dude's missing. You don't even notice it because he's so tiny and you're looking all over the board, and if he just got simply knocked off, then everything else is going to measure fine and you're not going to pick it up on diode mode readings to measure resistance to ground. So I think that I definitely learned something on this one, and it took way longer than I thought, but that's just the way it goes. Let's see if there's anything in chat. Lost the last few seconds of the video. What was the filter preventing? Was that filter preventing Jessa from getting image? Yes. Yes, it was. All right. To be honest, it doesn't sound like anything to do with getting image. I know, but clearly it does. All right. Learn something new. Yes. All right. So let's see. Rehot CPU. Ha 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 ha. All right. Let's see. Streaming like a pro via Sat soon. Oh, sure. All right. There we go. Mobo's like building circuits that interest me. Diode mode. Break stream. Jessa, what's your business upload and download speed, and who's your ISP? The ISP is Spectrum, which is the Time Warner, and you know, it's supposed to be 100 down, 10 up, but it's not. Trolled. Thought you would have seen it on pre-inspection. Yeah, me too. Let's see. So just as a figurative show of hands, how many people here in chat fix motherboards, and how many people here don't know that much about component level repair and are just watching the stream because it's cool? This one's not that cool. It's kind of boring. All right. YouTube may have to replace the hamsters. Stream was having issues on 2 systems. Yeah. This is a 110 connection. Buffering. My old relatives think I'm skilled when I reboot the machine. Ha ha ha. That's pretty funny. Buffering, New York. Heavy dropout, sorry. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. Okay, all right, I think we're done. So that one's fixed, and it is 12:01. I will see whether or not I feel like fixing something else tonight, since this was sort of my night to catch up on YouTube, but we'll see. It kind of slows me down. All right, guys, I will see you next time.